Well, it might work this time because now we have the camera. Hey, everybody, welcome. Sorry for a little tech issue there. Have no idea what that was. However, I just reloaded my Go Live page thinking it's going to wipe everything out. And sure enough, it came back up and we're working. So, everybody, thank you for being here. It is Friday night. This is Scotty Roberts. Now, I don't know what's playing there. Oh, that's me. On another page. I was watching the chat room go by in another page. So there we go. We are up. We're running. And sorry for the tech issues. We seem to have had a lot of those this week from one front or the other. So welcome to the show. Those of you who are new watching this or either watching it in archive, this is Scotty Roberts. I'm the host of this show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. We normally don't start at 12 minutes after the hour, or 11 minutes, or 10 minutes after the hour. We start at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Left Coast Time. And so I want to welcome you all here. I see everybody, the regular gang is all stacked up over there. Doug Stack, primarily, when I say stacked up. Doug Stack, good to see you. Roger Rabbit, nice to see you as well. Leslie Holker, good to see you. And thank you, by the way, for that $20. I appreciate that. You can all follow Leslie's example and throw $20 my way if you like. So I want to thank you, Leslie, for your ardent support, and I appreciate that. And I'm only repeating that over and over again because I want you to know how much I appreciate that. That's very cool. Let's see who else we got in here. We got CW. How you doing? Good to see you. Glad you made it in. And Steve Clark. Good to see you. Howdy, howdy, Steve. That's got to be a Kansas thing. And Master Finn, of course, has taken the ship out already, but the captain is now on the con, in the con, at the con, manning the con, something like that. And so, thank you for all being here, Scott Allen. I see you're here as well, and I'm just scrolling through, seeing who all is in the beauty of going live is that I can do this live. I can say hey to everybody. So, hey to everybody. If I said that too fast and slurred it, I said I hate everybody, but hey to everybody. And that's all the names that I'm seeing right now, scrolling by my face very quickly. Beth Kirkham, good to see you as well. So, folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, despite the fact that we had a little technical snafu getting online. Nothing on this end, I assure you. I hit the go live button and nothing happened. And it just spun and spun and spun in a circle. And I finally refreshed the technical go live page and I thought it would wipe it all out and we'd have to start a new channel, but boom, it came up. So here we are. Thanks for being here. Thanks for enduring. Thanks for being part of the show tonight. And so I am down. Tonight is not like last night. Those of you who were here last night, you saw a little different side of me in that I was a little drugged up and had had a couple of beers on top of the drugged up, which I probably shouldn't have done. And I was pretty damn loopy in here last night. So no oxy tonight, Steve. No, it was the oxy from last night. Yeah, there you go. The oxy hangover. Uh, and so I'm not apologizing for last night because last night was fun. I'm fully cognizant of what I said, but it's just funny. It's like I didn't lose touch with reality or anything like that for having oxy and had mixed some alcohol with it. I don't even know if that's a volatile mix. I was volatile last night though, and so no apologies. Just saying I had a good time with it. I hope you did too. I wasn't going to do a show last night, but I decided, probably under the influence of beer and oxy, that I would come in anyway. So I appreciate you all being here and all putting up with it, and it means a lot to me that you're here. And yeah, oxy was fun, CW. And so Uh, yeah, there wasn't supposed to be a show last night. I just came in at the last minute. It was like 10 minutes of, and I sat down and said, "Okay, I'm going to put up an announcement. Or at least a reminder on YouTube, even though I'd put up an advertisement saying we weren't going to do a show tonight." And so there's that. And I appreciate you all and the time that you give me and your loyalty here. That means a lot to me. And so I've just here. I'm just going to type something to somebody, which is I'm just telling Rainey I'm on radio. So if you see Rainey come into the chat room, if she gets the opportunity, she'll come in. So she was asking me some questions a few minutes ago. So I just let her know I'm on radio. I'm on radio. So maybe she'll show in. Hey, Carla Farrington. Good to see you. Glad you made it in tonight. And so tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about something I was going to talk about tomorrow night before I canceled the show. Something we were going to talk about the night before, but we got into kind of sidetracked on one topic. And so I want to bring it up again tonight. And I want to ask you, are you a pessimist or are you an optimist? Now, I'm going to tell you something. I have always felt I am an optimist, very optimistic, realistic, mixed in with that. I am I'm fairly positive. Those who may know me very well and are very close to me might say, "No, you're not," but I am. I'm a fairly positive person. I try to keep a positive outlook. I have lots of shit that has happened to me over the years, lots of things that happen on a daily basis, things that don't go right, things that go wrong, and it bothers the shit out of me. It bugs the hell out of me. And so I'm not pessimistic, but I'm sometimes, um, because you know what that stuff never does? It never really makes me go, well, the future is grim now. I'm never going to have I'm never going to have a break. I never say that kind of thing. But what I do find is that um, when things go wrong, I can spout for a good 20 minutes to a half an hour, just everything. It's like, okay, like this afternoon, something really set me off this afternoon. And okay, it was something, it might sound simple to you, but my wife, Rainey, is back home in Minnesota or Wisconsin. And I'm way down here, 1,200 miles south or thereabouts in Louisiana. And she suddenly something goes wrong with the car, the Ford Flex, and it won't start. It sounds like because of the severe cold up there. Those of you who live up there, like Leslie and others, know in some of that severe cold, you can get cylinders that aren't firing. And so she got the kids home from school. Cylinders weren't firing. She couldn't start it back up. And engine trembling and in the cold. And it was, I think, 15 below zero up there today without the wind chill. And so, on top of that, our minivan, our old minivan, now it still looks okay if you're standing 20 feet away from it. The burgundy minivan, that hasn't started in the cold for the last couple of days. So the minivan's not working. And so now that one's not now the Ford Flex is not working. And so she's got to get that over to the shop to have them look at it. But of course, it costs money to tow. We have a AAA membership that we spend money on every year. But guess what? AAA doesn't service New Richmond. They have no tow trucks in New Richmond. So we've experienced this before with them. And so all of a sudden, there were things, and my wife was like, Rainey was really discouraged this afternoon. She said, I'm 40 years old. She said, I should own my own house. I should own, she meant us as a couple. We should own our own house, should have my own car that works. And she says, there's always something going wrong. We're always short a penny here or too much going on. And it really got to her. And she said, I feel like such a loser, she said. And uh, and of course, what good does it do for me, the husband? You're not a loser, well, which of course I said. But so we were talking, and we were talking on video cam. And then, of course, the kids interrupt her, and the kids need this, the kids need that. And so, if anybody could be pessimistic, it could be my wife, and it could be me. And I I feel bad for her. Number one, because I'm not there. Guys, what do we have? We have the knight in shining armor syndrome. We're supposed to be the ones that take care of our wives, take care of the women in our lives. And many times to our fault. Sometimes, now you've heard this before, women have a issue with something, they just want to talk about it. Guys feel like they need to hop on their white chargers and take care of the problem. Sometimes women don't want us to take care of a problem, they just want us to be there to hear them. But the way we're wired as men, we want to solve the problem. We want to find the core of it, and slay the dragon, so to speak, and save the damsel in distress. And that's what I felt like then. This afternoon, I'm down here. I have no ability to do anything to help, and I got on my own little sorry party for myself. I said, you're right, Rainey. I said we should be much further ahead than we are, and we aren't. I said, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's not worth more conversation. Have you been to that place, folks? Have you ever been to the place where you look at the things going on around you and you say, why am I not advancing faster than I am? Now, could I dissect myself, find out all my problems, all my idiosyncrasies, all the places where I turned left when I should have turned right, and find the source of a problem? Maybe, if you put that energy into it. But the rest of it is just um, you try to keep a level head, you try to be positive. And it's really hard with my wife, especially, to be positive and go, hey, look, you know what? This looks bad right now. It's going to be better later. We'll get there. And that's my normal take on things, because things always get better. Maybe they don't always get to the next level better. They just get better. They get better. And so my son Sam had to hear me for a half an hour, well, 20 minutes maybe, ranting after all that. And after I was done talking to Rainey and she had to go, she had to do stuff with the kids. I had a meeting to go to with a client down here, but I stood outside before we got in the truck, my son and I raged for a good 15, 20 minutes maybe. And all the sputum of negativity comes up. This is going wrong. That's going wrong. That's not working. That's not working. I'm pissed at this person. I'm pissed at that person. I'm pissed at God for this. I'm pissed at whatever for that, the universe for this. And you just kind of let it all out. And then the next thing comes up on the list. Have you been there? Have you ever been pessimistic? Do you know what pessimism is? Do you know what negativity in your own life might be? Pessimism. It's that whole glass half empty thing. Um, Storm clouds constantly looming overhead, never with a silver lining. There's never a silver lining to the dark cloud. And pessimists get a lot of flack for their inclination toward negativity, their tendency to expect the worst in most situations. But besides taking a toll on mental health, pessimism, and their physical health, by the way, pessimism might take a beating. Everything takes a beating too. The physical health takes a beating when you're pessimistic. Pessimism, while it might be useful in isolation or in moderation, you can be a little pissy about this. That's not going to work. Or you say, look, we've been here before. That's not going to happen. There are good ways to use pessimism, or where pessimism is good for you. It creates a bit of realism, especially if you're an optimist. But it's associated with anxiety, with depression, with sleep disorders, sleep deprivation. You ever had that? You ever wake up in the middle of the night and something's nagging on your mind and you can't get back to sleep, and then you get more tired during the day? Hostility, high blood pressure, even heart disease, they say, is created by pessimism. So how do you handle it? How do you handle your pessimism? What are the things that when negativity sideswipes you or T-bones you, what do you do to take care of the pessimism? So having realistic expectations rather than taking extremely positive or negative positions might actually be the recipe for good health and good happiness, good mental health. Sometimes when you're pessimistic all the time, life becomes a drudgery, a gray cloud floating over your head. And perhaps not surprisingly, low levels of pessimism rather than high levels of optimism have actually been associated with better health. Low levels of pessimism. In other words, pessimism might be a risk factor for heart disease and mental illness and all those other things, sleep deprivation, so on, other physical and mental health conditions. But optimism won't necessarily prevent you from becoming ill. It won't have the opposite effect. Rather than constantly aiming for the bright smile and the sunny disposition or giving it to an overall negative outlook, the goal should be moderate optimism with a daily dose of pessimism, believe it or not. Sometimes it's good to be pessimistic. Yeah, Matt Finn, you're absolutely right. The world seems to sell a lot of pessimism these days. Look at our nation right now. Pessimism sells. And so we've all come to this. Doug's come to that. Matt Finn's come to this place. Leslie, I think, says, I've slept good nights since October. 3 good nights. So everybody's got it. Steve Clark, I'm usually up all night and a couple 2 hours of sleep during the day. That's kind of the way I was. Now, I'm not a pessimist, but I think I might have a little more pessimism than I think about because I don't sleep real well. I have weird anxieties that will take hold of me in my sleep stupor that wake me up fully and make me not get to sleep the rest of the night. So you got to shoot for the moon, says Leslie. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. See, and there's truth to that. But how can we combat our own pessimism with statements like that? Like, that was not me. That was somebody sitting in the room, radio audience. I thought I'd share that with you. How can I combat my own pessimism? One of the good ways is to label your negative thoughts when they arise, and then set them aside. What? Label them, set them aside. Now, I did that with my son. We were in the truck. We got into the truck when I was still going on and on and on about something. And I said, I said, I've spewed my cloud of pessimism. I said, now, I actually said that to him. And I said, now, I said, everything's going to be fine. Deep breath. Everything will be fine because I know how to make it better. Not because it's just going to happen on its own, but I know there are things I can do to make this better and help us get back to a more positive place. So the thing about your negative thoughts is to not give them attention, or as we say in more metaphysical circles, don't give it life. It only makes them more powerful. You know what I did the whole 20 minutes? I was ranting about negativity today. I was giving it all life. I was feeding it. I was stoking the fire. So you got to sometimes zoom out from all that stuff and focus on something different, either positive or neutral. Instead of rushing into the next task, slow down. Acknowledge whatever difficult shit or emotions that you might be feeling. Make room. Okay, get this, is going to sound really nuts, but make room for joy. Make room for the happy things. And it's not like, oh, think of your happy place. I'm not saying that. What I'm talking about, you just saw that, folks. Pete, my friend Pete, I'm working with down here, Pierre, was sitting over there gaming on his computer, and he belched. And that's what I said. That's where I said to everybody, hey, that wasn't me. That came from over there. Pete just put in $5 for the belch. Well spent, he said. Money well spent, he says. So there you go. Hey, Pierre, Leslie says. So he's not part of the show. He's not participating in the chat room or anything. He's playing games over there, video games, but he's got his big screen over there on the other side of the table. But he hears what's going on. So Steve Clark says, I think from being in the military and on mobility all 8 years, I got used to working with little sleep and be feeling good and smile most of the time. And Doug Stack, is that $5 taxable? I'll find out. If it's under the table, it's not. I'm not telling the government I got $5 from Pete. So, but he did donate, yes. So we move on in this in what I'm thinking about here, and this whole thing is you got to acknowledge and accept the fact that there's joy, that there's happiness, that there's something else. And you know what that all really is? It's setting your mind, it's setting your mental approach to things. It's like we talked the other night when we were on negativity and pessimism, is that um it's not always a natural thing. Well, there are some people who are naturally more positive and naturally more negative. Sometimes all those things work because you do something to actively be proactive about something, or to do the opposite of the negative thing. So you got to make room. You got to set aside some things, acknowledge the difficult emotions, the difficult, shitty feelings, and make room for the joy and the good things that are going on. I had to do that today and to make room for it. I didn't see an end to things this afternoon, and especially when you're in them, you don't always see the end to something because it looks bleak. And yet, there's that. You've heard me say this before, and it's just popping into my mind. And so I want to bring it up again. There's something I want to read to you. Uh, um, and some of you may have already figured out where I'm going with this. Let's see if I can find the full length of it. Yeah, here it is. Okay, I brought this up before. This isn't a perfect example of pessimism and negativity and optimism and positive attitude, but, and I've quoted it before, and you all know that this means something. It's that from The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and it's Sam's speech to Frodo. It was at the end of the movie, and it's not exactly like it appears in the book, but it's the same theme. If you remember that, and if you remember, they're kind of at the end, wit's end, and Frodo's he's saying to Sam, he's expressing, I can't do this. He says, I can't do this, Sam. And Sam says, I know, it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? That's the point I'm making. Sometimes you're so stuck in it, like I was this afternoon, you're like, I don't even see a way out. I don't even see a better thing. It's going to have to, it'll come, but I'm not seeing it yet. And so Sam said, how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? Look at us, the way we think about our country right now. How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, Sam goes on, it's only a passing thing. This shadow, even darkness, must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't, because they were holding on to something. And Frodo asks him, What are we holding on to, Sam? And Sam said that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Those are the things that keep you. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the joy or the happiness or focusing on the things. It's that you ask the question, how could things be any better when so much bad has happened? How do you go back to the way things were when there's nothing to look forward to? And and he answers his own question. And he says that the world is worth fighting for, the good is worth fighting for. And that's really the message behind all of this, maybe psychological blather, is that you got to put aside the negative things. You're in the thick of it, but sometimes you can't see the end of it. It could be a small thing that's getting you, grating, or it could be a big thing that's grating on you. But these are the things that set us back and hold us back and keep us from moving forward. And like I used to say, I've said many times on this show, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. It's not that we're bad people, it's that we're busy with these other thoughts that can pull us down and steal our happiness away from us. This is why I say, and you see how all these things wrap together for me? That's why I have the Mark Twain quote about 20 years from now. You'll regret more of the things you didn't do than the things you did do. So cast away from the safe harbor. Set your sails to the trade winds, explore, dream, discover. Why is that such a mantra? Because we can bury ourselves, hold ourselves back from advancing in anything if we stay negative enough, if we're pessimistic enough. So another question comes up, how can we help somebody else that we know who might be stuck in negativity or stuck with this whole pessimistic thing? Can we help ourselves? Can we help other people? So instead of avoiding pessimism or a pessimistic person, reach out to them. Try to identify possible sources of their negativity. Well, I could be very pessimistic about that and say most pessimistic people don't want to hear that. They don't want to listen to you. Perhaps they're going through difficult times and like the loss of, I don't know, loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of whatever, bad breakup. Maybe they could use a sympathetic ear. So understanding the cause of a person's pessimistic outlook can lead to create ideas to boost their happiness. And we can do this to ourselves too. So, but I want to tell you there's an upside to pessimism. Pessimists sometimes make better leaders, particularly where there's a need to ignite social change. Their skepticism maybe is going to make them more resistant to propaganda and false advertising. Um, the degree of pessimism felt by an individual or group can often be linked to political and economic conditions in their personal lives and their society. And in addition to all of that, defensive pessimism has proven to be a useful cognitive strategy for some people. They set their expectations very low and then they outperform those low expectations by preparing thoroughly for a wide range of negative outcomes in advance. So that's maybe a benefit to pessimism. So, in smaller doses, pessimism can be very adaptive for us because it alerts people to threats. For instance, pessimism, distrust of others can be a red flag of burnout at work. Being aware of these problem areas in life makes it possible to change those harmful behaviors, to adopt a healthier, less cynical attitude. And so, let me ask you this question. Do you think negative, pessimistic, or depressed, discouraged people see the world more clearly? or more realistically than the optimist? Do you think that's a possibility? People with a depressed mood may demonstrate more accurate judgment about an event, real or imagined, and a more realistic perception of their own abilities or their own limitations in whatever the matter is. They're depressed and they might see things a little clearer than we might think. And this is a phenomenon that's referred to as depressive realism. This is observed both among people in a state of depression and among longer term trait pessimists. So it's something that they can see that sometimes we can't see. And so sometimes pessimism is an okay thing to hang on to or to at least have, but there are reasons we should try to work our way through those things. And so, are any of you pessimistic about anything right now? I've got my pessimisms, I've got my negativities, but I try to cover it up with the bravado. In a sense, it's a bravado of trying to be positive despite despite whatever the circumstances are. And so let's move on with this a little bit. I have so much stuff in front of me here. I got everything from can you look on the bright side of life to um, help you live longer? It's a question. Does being positive or optimistic help you live longer? Did you know that there's new studies that are linked to linking pessimism and negativity to an earlier death? But being optimistic may not save you. But pessimism is pernicious. So get that? Being optimistic may not save you, but being pessimistic is pernicious. Pessimism is linked to increased death risk. Optimism, however, on the other hand, doesn't protect you from an increased death risk. So figure that one out for a second. On this hand, my pessimism could cause my early death. My optimism, if I turn to that instead, doesn't really increase my life at all. Just keeps me from losing my life earlier. So occasionally a new scientific study comes along with this head scratching title that at first glance reads like a brain teaser and seems to present a paradoxical conundrum of some kind. And such is the case with a recent paper entitled Pessimism is Associated with Greater All Cause and Cardiovascular Mortality, but Optimism is Not Protective. Catch that? A recent paper. Pessimism is associated with greater all cause and cardiovascular mortality, but optimism is not protective. And this was done by a couple of researchers in Queensland Institute of Medical Research in Australia. If you're out there, Amanda, this one's for you. It's Australian scientists. And it was published not long ago, actually, in the Journal of Scientific Reports. Now, as the title infers, that long, verbose title, the researchers found that people who are extremely pessimistic about the future based on scores from life orientation tests, LOT for short, LOT, were at greater risk of dying prematurely than their less pessimistic peers. However, what makes this optimism pessimism study seem like a catch-22 is that being extremely optimistic didn't appear to have a positive or a negative impact on someone's risk of dying at a young age at all. Notably, the researchers didn't find an association between higher positivity and optimism scores and increased life expectancy. And he just didn't find it. John Whitfield, who was one of these authors of this study, said, "We found people who were strongly pessimistic about the future were more likely to die earlier from cardiovascular diseases than other causes of death, but not from cancer." Optimism's scores, on the other hand, did not show a significant relationship with death, either positive or negative. And so the key to this riddle seems to be this, that contrary to popular belief, pessimism and optimism aren't polar opposites, but rather they represent two separate, distinct character traits, but not necessarily opposites. Optimism and pessimism are not direct opposites. Therefore, the researchers used two separate scales to measure pessimism and optimism in relation to all cause, all cause mortality. And in their paper, the authors elaborate on the distinction between optimism and pessimism. I'm going to read you a little excerpt from their paper. They said this: many of these epidemiological, I could say it really well 100 times before tonight. Epidemiological studies, many of these measured the traits of optimism and pessimism using the life orientation test, the LOT, which was put together by Shear and Carver in 1985. Now, this measures outcome expectancies by recording agreement or disagreement with optimistic and pessimistic statements. You agree with this pessimistic statement or disagree? You agree with this optimistic statement or disagree? So the originators of this instrument view optimism and pessimism as an important and stable dimension of personality correlated with but distinguishable from hopelessness. You get that? Optimism or pessimism is an important, stable dimension of personality correlated with but distinguishable from hopelessness. Both optimism and pessimism give us hopelessness. They correlate with it. It correlates with also depression, self-esteem, locus of control. And so importantly, from our perspective, they also comment that optimism and pessimism may not anchor the two ends of one dimension. Rather, they may reflect two related but separate dimensions altogether. And so it's not the opposite and the negative, it's not the opposite of each other. They're not on the same scale, they're separate from each other, two distinctly different dimensions of our psyche. And the vast majority of existing research has treated optimism and pessimism as bipolar in nature, when in really, they're not bipolar in nature, they're two different things. There was another UK-based study on optimism, pessimism, and realism found that in the long run, realists who are neither optimists or pessimists tend to have the highest sense of subjective well-being, SWB. Believe it or not, there's an abbreviation for that because it's an oft referred to term. And happiness is based on self-reported life satisfaction and psychological distress questionnaires. So coincidentally, this whole optimism pessimism study also has a title that at first glance reads like a riddle. Neither an optimist nor a pessimist be. Mistaken expectations lower well-being. Okay, it's a mouthful, but I think you're grasping this. Interestingly, Whitfield and colleagues found that for both optimists and pessimists, their degree of optimism or pessimism tended to increase with age. The older we get, the more set we get in our optimism or our pessimism, in other words. And we can only speculate as to why both optimism and pessimism scores are higher in the older participants in the study, wrote the authors. And it's possible that older people have come to a more definite conclusion about their expectations from life, whether for good or for ill. And this is reflected in the higher scores in these tests. Now, according to Whitfield, one of the authors of this test, these research findings raise questions about the practical health benefits of training people out of pessimism, training them out, taking them out, going in and yanking them out of the cult of pessimism. But the $1 million question remains, can people learn to be less pessimistic? Anecdotally, I know that learning to expect nothing and to live frugally on surprise helped me become more of a realist who isn't excessively pessimistic or a Pollyanna. Understanding that our long term health can be influenced by whether we're a cup half full or a cup half empty kind of person might be the prompt we need to try to change the way we face the world and try to reduce negativity. And this is even in really difficult circumstances. And so sometimes we have to just train ourselves to be that way. Sometimes, sometimes not being super organized and super planning might be something that helps us with our optimism and pessimism. So I see somebody, Ian, take care, or Land, take care. Stay safe and healthy. There's somebody here I didn't even know was here. Sorry about that because I'm talking so much. Siani, good to see you. Barbary D, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. And so Iowa X, good to see you. Realism versus delusion. Are those actually polar opposites? I don't think so. And you can be deluded and still be a realist about it. So I don't know. And good night, Siani. A couple of you have had to take off. Good to have you here. And good to see you, Barbie D. Robert, Scotty's good to see you. Robert, Scotty's. Robert. Is there a Robert here? Stop. Get off me. The dog here is a sweet heart of a dog, but it's still a pup. Constantly in your crotch, in your ass, in your armpit, trying to put her hands on, lick you, bite you, nip you, do whatever she can to get your attention. And that's what she's doing under the table here. She's constantly got her head up here, trying to get up at me, trying to get me to do something. So sorry about that. The misspelled. Siani was what it was supposed to say. Okay. You guys were on something else there. I missed it. So I'm going to move on from that. But where are you on this whole pessimistic, optimistic scale, realistic scale? What does it do for you? And then there's the question that I got to ask: can looking on the bright side help you live longer? Now we got 6 minutes left of this show. We started late. We may end late, at least by 5 or 10 minutes. But research has demonstrated that optimism is connected to improved health. So when one study says optimism doesn't really lengthen your life, but pessimism can shorten it, I think there are studies that now show that if you can improve your health by being optimistic, would that lengthen your life? If you can improve your health, would many of us say that improved health lengthens life? So we all like to be around optimistic people, at least to a certain extent. Those people who feel hopeful, confident about the future, they embody these positive mental attitudes that we wish we could have or that we need to observe. And now a growing body of research is demonstrating that those glasses half full types that aren't just more pleasant to be around, they're more likely to live longer, healthier lives. Even though being optimistic doesn't lengthen your life, while pessimism can have physical effects on you. Ulcers, heart disease, sleeplessness, so on. But if being pessimistic or optimistic does the opposite of those things, yet doesn't lengthen lifespan, maybe it's lengthening lifespan by the positive qualities, the positive consequences it has on our minds and our bodies. So while the available evidence only shows a connection between optimism and health, not a cause and effect relationship, there are enough data to encourage medical and psychological researchers to think a lot more carefully about optimism. The most recent analysis of this topic was published in JAMA Network, JAMA Network, and cardiology and behavior science researchers combined the data from 15 studies to measure the link between optimism, cardiovascular events, and death, heart attacks, things like that, heart problems, and death with optimism. And nearly 230,000 people in total participated in the studies. And in these studies, the researchers found that people with optimistic attitudes were significantly less likely to experience a heart attack, a stroke, angina, and were less likely to die from any cause compared to pessimistic people in the study. And so a longitudinal study, also published just last year, yielded similar findings. This analysis used data gathered from two large studies, one following thousands of women, the other following thousands of men over the course of decades. And researchers measured participants' level of optimism and pessimism. And then they created these complex models to determine which participants would live to 85 or older. And the study found that the most optimistic people out there had an opportunity or had approximately 15% longer lifespans compared to most pessimistic people. So let's say you use 100 years as a scale, that would be 15 more years. And they were significantly more likely to survive to age 85 and beyond. So what's going on with this? So on one hand, we're told optimism doesn't increase your lifespan. Yet we're finding that lifespans are increasing because of the results or the conclusions, the consequences of being optimistic, of being positive. Leslie, I see, has to leave. Good night, Leslie. See you later. No, not vagina. I wondered if when I said that somebody was get out of there. Go. Oh, dog, get down. Sorry, folks. Live radio reprimanding an animal that just wants to have fun. Stop and go away. Go lay down. Go lay down. We used to train dogs a long time ago. Sometimes you got to be strict with them. Don't look at me like I'm going to play. And then he comes back and looks at me with, what? I can play? So there you go. Here, let me go back to what we were talking about. So what's going on with all this? Optimism. Can optimism really do something to expand our lives? And there's some data that are more optimistic that say that more optimistic people are more likely to engage in healthy behaviors. When you're down, when you're depressed, when you're negative, when you're pessimistic, sometimes you don't want to do anything. You want to go play handball, racquetball, tennis, you want to go fishing, you want to go hunting, you want to go do something, you want to go play games, you want to, sometimes those just aren't things that people who are down, discouraged, depressed, pessimistic, negative want to engage in on a regular basis. And so researchers believe that feeling pessimistic leads the body to release stress hormones that lead to inflammation and create metabolic problems such as diabetes, heart disease, these types of things when you are pessimistic all the time. So while researchers continue working to understand exactly how optimism promotes health, there's enough evidence to merit improving your own optimism. So Cornell physiologist Anthony Ong, O-N-G, he studies the emotional determinants of health in adulthood, and he believes that there is a whole lot more to learn about the connection between optimism and good health. He said accumulating data from prospective observational studies suggests a robust link between optimism and reduced mortality. An unanswered question, however, is how large a boost in optimism would be needed to have a measurable impact on health. And so to date, controlled intervention studies that demonstrate sustained improvements in optimism, subsequent to health, have yet to be conducted. Nevertheless, the research holds a great potential for improving population health. So, really, the take home message you can get out of all this is that your health is better off if you're able to look at the bright side of life, the upside to things, even when in the midst of the negative side of things. And this is a message for myself. That was pretty negative this afternoon. So you have to do your best to cultivate an optimistic attitude. Because without it, you might be putting yourself to an early grave. But with this optimistic attitude, you might be finding ways that expand your good health, your good mental health, your good physical health. Because we all know, how many years have we known, somebody who is stressed a lot, they get ulcers. So we know that stress, mental stress, emotional stress can cause physical outcomes. Now they're finding that pessimism and negativity can lead to diabetes, can lead to heart disease, all these things. If I were to go on for a lot longer than I did this afternoon, 15, 20 minutes of raging about something that had me, not raging, raging is out of control. I was only slightly out of control. I was ranting. I was letting off steam, which is a good thing to do. But if I were to maintain that level of anxiety and discouragement and feeling down and being pessimistic about the future, negative, do you think I'd eventually have a heart attack? I could probably induce one if I didn't calm that down. Yeah, probably. So, buffering at 10:02, 2 minutes past end time. YouTube is messing with it. Ah, maybe so. I don't know. I don't have a prescribed end time. So this COVID thing is really becoming annoying, says Matthew Sainsbury. Yes, it is, Matthew. Different topic. We're not even talking about COVID tonight, but you are correct. It is becoming annoying. And so in our country in general. So Doug Stack says, I was always stressed and never got anything until about a year ago. And as I was getting sick, I got optimistic and it all went away. Now, are there direct correlations there, Doug? Maybe. Maybe it has an effect on things. But Steve says, take care, stay safe, healthy, wherever all my sisters and brothers may be tonight. Sending much love, peace of mind, heart healing to all of you worldwide. Thanks, Steve. Now, that's a good, positive message. I appreciate that. So there we go, folks. That's really the lesson I wanted us to have tonight is there is a possibility by being negative and pessimistic that we can affect our health in negative ways. There's also, and even reduce our lifespan because of the end result of being that way. And so being positive, and I know positive people who you can tell are fake positive people. Like, that's fake. You're really putting that on. Or you are really struggling with something very negative that that it's so obvious you're trying to cover up the negativity with being positive. Now, maybe faking it till you make it is something that works sometimes. But I think when it comes to mental health and approaching our negativity and our positivity, that those things are things that will manifest themselves in our lives. So Matt says if there's such as a this as a placebo effect, I don't doubt attitude is a big health factor. Yeah, absolutely. So after my heart surgery 4 years ago, just a couple of days ago, I was very positive about healing from that. It was a little tough at first. If you coughed, because I had that scar and it was wired shut or whatever shut there, and they gave you a little heart-shaped pillow that all the cardiologists signed and the nurses. And you had to hug that pillow or a pillow. If you coughed, you had to hug that so you didn't blow your chest open. Literally. That's why you had to hug that pillow while you coughed and hold things down. And could that be unnerving, nerve-wracking? Negativity come out of that? Sure. And that wasn't fun to go through. But overall, I said, I think within a couple of weeks, I was out with a hatchet with my son in the woods on our property. We were chopping down little trees that had fallen and things like that. and I felt pretty darn good. It was just the idea of getting out there and doing and keeping a positive mind. So, um, anyway, so yeah, I think so, Doug. I think so. I also think so, Matt. So, there we go, folks. That's our show for tonight. That's all the material I have. No, I take that back. I got a shitload full of material on this. I got all kinds of tabs open and I got all kinds of articles stacked up here, things we could draw from. I always throw up a whole lot more than we can use because, and you know what? We never make it through. That's why my series of shows that I have when we do the series, that's why they last weeks sometimes because I can take 2 days worth of material, and as we expand on it, stretch it out into 2 weeks because we keep adding to and we keep expanding and we keep learning something from talking about it. So keep going tonight, Scotty says Doug. So Beth's dad went through it. Are you talking the heart thing, Beth, or the stress thing, the stress related, the positive and negative? So, anyways, I try to be positive. Now, some of you who follow me and some of the political posts I put up over the last few years, sometimes I include heavy personal commentary on those posts. Sometimes I take a quote from an article that I'm posting. Sometimes I put a phrase up or a sentence. And I'm not I'm not a pessimistic person when it comes to our country. Although I have some negativity about certain things that go on. That negativity is housed in, I think, a realism. But do I let that strangle my positivity? No. Do you know what? No matter what happens, 4 years from now, something different's going to happen. And it may be good, it may be bad, it may be worse. I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if things could get worse than they are now. I think if we keep heading in the direction we're going to lose our status as a republic. That distresses me. A constitutionally limited republic. So that's not political talk. That's just current events talk. And does that bring pessimism for some and optimism for others? Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's flip flopped. I would hate to think that kids that are raised in this country in the last 20 years, from the time of their birth, would think that there's something wrong with the form of our government and the form of our country, that they would want to change it into something different. That's a bit of pessimism, but I'm positive we're going to get through it. We're going to do all right. And so there you go. So, Doug, you're right. There are some people on my Facebook that are pieces of work. There are people who are old friends of mine who don't even talk to me unless I've said something that they can find something to disagree with. And then they'll talk to me. So, yeah, toilet paper shortage coup. Ain't that the truth, man? So, without, I could so easily lapse into politics. I'm not going to. Not tonight. And so, while I have some things that have made me pessimistic today, there are other things that keep me optimistic, all with a realistic bent to it. Is that there's nothing that we encounter, my wife and I, my family and I, my friends and I, all of you, nothing we encounter that we can't overcome. Maybe death, that's not as overcomable as we'd like it to be. But maybe there are things we can do to increase. So we didn't get the pressure cooker here yet, Doug. Not yet. We made more spaghetti tonight. So we're a pasta and red sauce with red meat type of household of 3 adult males. And we've cooked other things. It's getting creative, cooking creatively. Who wants to take the time sometimes? You're so busy, you're so tired. Oh, I don't want to take the time to do, I don't know, split chicken breasts stuffed with olives from Santorini, and whatever. And a great glaze sauce made out of squash and chives. I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? So Ah, the toilet paper used to wipe the backsides of politicians. I get you, Matt. I know what you mean. So there we go. We're done. We're overdone. It's 11 minutes past 10. We've now been here for an hour. So I came out at 9:11 by my clock. Due to the snafu with YouTube. There was some kind of connectivity snafu. And I just refreshed and on we came. So I want to thank you all for being here. Today is Friday. We will not be here tomorrow unless I get a wild hankering to do a live stream from somewhere for some reason. I don't know that that's going to happen. Hey, Scott Allen, thank you for thanking me. I appreciate that. And Sunday, we may do a Sunday morning show. I'm going to see if there's any way possible I can get Rainey connected with me to do a Sunday morning show. We'll see what happens. All right. And by next week, I hope to be have everything up and running the way we want it to be up and running. And of course, you're watching me here inside what looks like a little booth. It's really the garage of this RV, this big, massive RV. So I want Rainey on the show too, Doug. Be good to get her, and I'd love to have had her take on with Oxy and beer. My wife said to me, she said, "You know what I want to do today?" She said, "I'm so pissed off by this, and I'm so discouraged by this." She said, uh, "I'm just going to go find some weed or a bottle of tequila." She said, "That's what I feel like, just checking out for a while." And she doesn't do that. My wife hasn't smoked since she was pregnant with Flynn. That's going on 12 years. And she doesn't drink very much at all. Every now and then, a half of an apple or an angry orchard, something like that. Steve, I'll try. Uh, I could do that very easily tomorrow night. I could, or Monday night, or whenever. I could pop another oxy and have a couple of beers, and we're ready to rip into whatever topic is there. Oh yes, and Valentine's Day, or as Mr. T says, Valentine's Day. So that's coming up on Sunday, folks, and so I'm gonna take care of as much business as I can on that romantically with my wife for Sunday. Hate being away from her for that. Do you know Valentine's Day is actually, I started making a little journal for my wife on Valentine's Day of 2006. And it was just a black journal, one of those you can buy them at the store for $4, the black hardcover with the white pages. And I'd taken a picture of us and pasted it on the front and did a little artwork around it. I can't remember what I wrote on the front, but it was Rainey's little book. And I haven't kept up with it as much over the years. Every now and then I see it and I think, and I set it out so I can say I can add something to that. But the very first entry was on Valentine's Day of 2006. Now, we had been together as a couple since August of 2005. But I held her, as I told you before, I just held her at arm's length. It was like, not into this relationship thing anymore. I'm not doing it again. Been married twice. I had a long-term girlfriend that I had broken up with earlier that year. And I said, I'm just not doing it. I'm not going there again. We can have a friendship and relations, but I don't want a relationship. And I told her that. And, I look back and I think I really don't like the way I was to her and the way I treated her back then. I didn't try to treat her badly. I just would not commit to her. And um, with the arm's length I held her at, she had every reason to not want to be with me. And we actually kind of broke off what I was insisting didn't exist in the first place early in 2006. And I did not like that at all. I did not like the idea of losing her. I did not like the idea of that coming to an end. It 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 just broke me. And I finally, it was on I think it was the day before Valentine's Day, or earlier the same day. I can't remember exactly when. And I just got on my knees in front of her and I said, "Hey, forgive me for being a fuck and a schmutz." And I said, and seriously, folks, I'm using vernacular, but that's the way I felt about it. Forgive me for being such a horrible person to you. And I said, I don't want this to end. And lucky me, she agreed. And so the first entry I made in that book was Valentine's Day. And I did a little sketch of her that's in there, just in markers, a quick sketch of her. And did a couple of sketches and I added photographs over the months or the years. I added things to it. And it's not very full. There's not a lot in there. There's a few entries. So I'm going to have to do that for her again soon. So, hey, Michelle, glad you made it here 10 minutes after the show was supposed to end. I think you just saw that we're still here. So it's good to have you whenever we have you, whenever we can get you. So, kicked off the boots, made it before we had to head home, Michelle. So says Matt Finn. And so, oopsie daisy, says Michelle. Don't be oopsie daisy. I'm just giving you crap. So, it's good to have you here, even at the very end of things. And so, I don't think I have anything else to say. We've exhausted it for tonight. We're done with the show. We started about 10 minutes late due to some technical difficulties on YouTube's part. And we got ourselves in here and we went for an hour, and now an hour and 8 minutes. So I think it's time to go. So you all have a good night. I'll see you again on Sunday morning, one way or the other, with or without Rainy. All depends on if we have it set up to bring her in yet or not. And love you too, Michelle. Thank you. And so, yeah, absolutely, Elderberry. Absolutely. So, I like seeing her face. We talk online every day. I didn't talk to the kids as much today, but I talked to her a couple times because there was all the problems going on today. And so it's good. I love seeing her face. So there you go. And Matt, my brother, I love you and your family too. Have a great night yourself. So everybody, you have a good night. I'm going to end this stream now. And we're going to see you back here maybe Sunday, maybe tomorrow if I have any time to get back in here in front of the computer. And we'll do a live stream, maybe, but for sure on Sunday. And then we'll see you next week. So you all have a great evening, rest of your evening, and a great weekend. Good night.